Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. I'm going to use the F word, give you advance warning. It's a word that's very uncomfortable for a lot of us. When you hear it, sometimes it conjures up just feelings of anxiety and just, you don't know how to move forward with this F word. Forgiveness. Forgiveness. When you forgive, you release, and it changes your life. How do you forgive? How do you forgive yourself? That's another one that we're going to get into today. And she helps people with this and so many other challenges. Full Moon Behavioral is the practice that she's part of. And she joins us. Vicki Giron is on the program. How you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you today?
Good, good. I forgive myself for not seeing you on the Zoom before and not being able to communicate with you.
That's okay.
Why is it so tough? Let's focus on one scenario. Somebody's done you wrong. Somebody's done you wrong. And it's real. I'm not talking about, that wasn't cool. It was legit. You talk to anybody that knows you, maybe the other person, and they say, yeah, it's just like that. That was way wrong what they did. And they continue to do wrong. Why is it so hard to forgive somebody?
Because it feels like a personal affront, right? We've all experienced it, and all of us, multiple times. So it is a difficult thing to get through. One of the ways I think, at least for me, what I found easiest to do is let's tie it back to the life path that we talked about last week.
Okay.
So when you tie forgiveness back to that path, I'm on my own path. You're on your own path. Maybe we have a conflict, an unforgivable situation happens, or something someone might believe is unforgivable, right? And it's a matter of taking a step back and going, I have my journey. This other person has their own journey. And if we can acknowledge our journeys may not align, and if they don't align, that's okay, right? What did I learn, but how did I grow from whatever this unforgivable situation or this difficult situation is? What did I learn from it? Am I stronger because of it? Am I more empathetic because of it? What can I take away and say, okay, I've got something positive from this. I'm good with moving on. This other person, they may have realized that what they did was hard and difficult and should be, hey, I'm apologizing. And they may not, right? They may have a long way to go yet on their journey. But if you can recognize they're walking their own path, and their path may not let them at this point acknowledge it, or they may not be ready to acknowledge it. It allows you, I think, in my opinion, to be able to take a step back and say, okay, we're in different places energetically. We're in different places vibrationally, spiritually. That person's got a little way to go before they recognize what they're doing is possibly hurting other people. Right? Then I think that forgiveness is easier to do, because how can you blame them if they're tackling something else that you're not tackling? How can you sit back and say, this isn't good? You really need to understand that they're in a different space than you are, and they've got a different journey than you do. And I think when you can do that, then you can acknowledge and say, I know a better person because of it, and hopefully they figure it out. There's a level of self-reflection there going, maybe this is not good for me. This is not healthy to stay in this scenario. This can become toxic over time, and you need to then take that decision. Do I need to take a step away, right?
I'm loving how you tied it onto the life path, because it makes it easier to accept what somebody has done. And it makes it clearer, and you may have been on the same path at one point, let's say a long-term relationship, and then the path changed, and then you realize why somebody did what they did. You're not condoning it. You're understanding it.
Right.
Understanding it. And they may have never said they were sorry, but in order to move your life forward, you need to forgive them in just an energetic way, if you will.
Right.
Yeah. Not easy, though. How do we do it? What's the secret?
We need to release it. So before we get to how do we do it,
Okay.
let's talk a little bit about how does it impact us from a negative in a positive way, right? So from a positive way, if we're able to forgive, which is a beautiful thing, what happens is we become a better person, right? We become more empathetic. We get stronger as an individual. Our soul grows. We move up to a higher vibration level, and we're able to let that go and say, that's their journey. I'm on my journey, and I'm in a good space. And I didn't do anything that needs to be apologized for, or maybe I was part of it, and here's my apology for my part of it.
Sure.
Here's what I did that I contributed to it. And, will they accept it? Won't they accept it? That's their journey, right? What they do is their journey. What I do is mine. So if you can release it and you can forgive, it puts you in a much better space and moving forward on your path and moving up in soul level, vibration level, and becoming that much better of a person. But the bigger question is, if you think about it, what happens if you don't forgive that person? Are you doing it out of punishment to them? Is it really a punishment to them if you don't forgive them? It's on you. It's not on them.
Right.
Is it, are you trying to teach them a lesson? Are they open to even receiving the lesson? Is the other question. And if they are, I think they're gonna figure it out on their own. They don't need you to try to force it on them, right? So there's the other side. If you don't forgive, what's it really accomplishing with that person or people? But within yourself, the bigger problem is if you don't forgive and you hold on to that, that's a dark energy. That's a negativity that stays with you. That anger or that sadness, so much as hate, people get to that level, right? I hate this person. I hate what they did. That level and that anxiety or that depression that comes with it, it only drags you down. Right. It doesn't drag the other person down, right? It impacts you and your way forward. It impacts your aura. Right? It impacts your energy level. When I'm doing readings for people, I've had someone come in and I describe them as Pigpen. They walk in and it's like this cloud of dust around them, the Peanuts Pigpen, right? They're brown and this dust cloud is there. And it's like, wow, what are you holding on to, right? You need to clear that out. And when you clear that out, then good can come in. But if you've got all this negativity, this dark in there, nothing good can come. And that aura goes brown, it goes black, it turns to these dark colors and it holds on to that. And the longer you hold on to that, it can create even illness, right? When you're ill, your aura goes dark in areas and conversely, it's the same way. If your aura and your energy level goes to a negative level, it impacts your physical being and your physical body. Why do that to yourself? Because someone wronged you, right? Why should you hold on to that? There's no reason to hold on to that from that standpoint. So you really got to dig in and you want to look at how do I lift my energy level? Because the aura, when it's dark, your spirituality is also heavier, I would say, and darker. In relationships, we can say opposites attract, right? And people complement each other. It's yin yang. We're all happy when we're with someone who can complement that side. But energetically and orally, we tend to gravitate towards those that are exactly like us, right? We want someone of a higher vibration if we're of a higher vibration. If we're sitting down in the dark level, then that's what we're attracting in. That's the kind of people we're bringing into our life. And that's not what we want. We want to bring in someone that's much better for us and that we're better for them. So if you look at the impact that it has, holding on and not forgiving is not impacting the other person. It's really hurting yourself.
We don't realize that. And what you said, we certainly don't realize the fact that when you clear the stuff out, you're making room for the good stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely making room for that good when the negative leaves. And that's the only way to make room for it is to let that go.
Yeah.
And it's, how do you let it go? that's a whole nother genre. It depends upon what the situation is from that standpoint. And forgiving is not about forgetting, right? You don't have to forget.
Right.
You just have to acknowledge, I don't hold that against you anymore. Whatever you did to me was not okay. I can acknowledge that. I can acknowledge that it's still there, but I don't have to hold on to it. I don't have to hold that grudge. I don't have to hold that anger. I don't have to hold that darkness. I'm ready to move on, and I'm ready to release it into the universe, let the spirit guides and everyone else deal with it. I'm ready to move on to something bigger and better. And that's literally the best way you can do it, is release it. There's a lot of different ways you can do that. If you struggle with it, write a letter. Don't mail it.
Yep.
Write the letter. Yep. Burn it.
Mm-hmm.
Burn it when you're finished with it. Or, throw it into the ocean. Whatever that method is, get it out, say your piece, but do it in a way that is not harmful to the other person. And it relieves you from that burden of anger, that burden of frustration, that burden of anxiety, and let it go. And when you let it go, you'll feel lighter. It's not all gone right away, right? Sometimes if it's a really tough forgiveness, it's going to take a few steps to get there. And it's going to take some time. And if it involves grief, that takes even longer, because you have to get through the grief before you can forgive. You have to let that process work in your body and in your soul. You can't, it's tough. If someone's in full on grief mode because, unfortunately, if someone passed or a relationship completely ended that you were, very much in love with this other person and they're now gone, it's hard to just instantly forgive. That's, I don't think many people do that. You need to process the grief and you need to get through that. And once you're through the grief, then you can take that step back and say, all right, what did I learn? How am I a better person because that person came into my life or that situation happened to me? And now I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to release it. I'm ready to say, I forgive that, and say it out loud. You don't have to say it to the person if you don't want to.
Yep.
It's better to, but say it out loud at least. So put some teeth to it when you do that, and then you can move on.
I've discussed grief forgiveness in podcasts many times. The grief element has never come up. And
really?
Yeah. And when you think about it, huge. Because if somebody's done you wrong, best way to describe it, and you need to forgive them, there's probably an element of grief in there in some shape, form.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, because you trusted this person,
there
right?
You go.
Well, you wouldn't need to forgive them. You trusted them. You had full faith in them and in the two of you as some type of relationship, whether it's friendship, whether it's more than friendship. There has to be grief there because to you, a part of that trust is now gone.
Sure.
And maybe that person's completely gone from your life. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're still there, but you've lost that trust. So there's grief. You have to let that go.
Yeah. And that's a big one. And that could take years, depending on the situation. Do you feel that in a relationship, and that's where a lot of this is, that's, where you have to exercise forgiveness, that it always takes two. It's a two-way street. That doesn't mean that both parties are equally responsible. It doesn't mean that both parties did the same to each other. It could be two people, and in terms of the scale of, oh my gosh, what the heck did you do? It could be like this. But there's always, this person had a piece of that in some way. Doesn't mean that it was right for that other person to do what they did. But you have, and then herein lies, I guess that was a segue to forgiving yourself.
Absolutely. And that can be one of the most tough and difficult scenarios to do. And it could be easier to forgive somebody else, but to take a step back and forgive yourself. If you've got, let's say, an abusive situation and you've got children involved, right? And if you're that person who was abused and you have children, how do you forgive yourself for what you may have put them through, right? By staying, by not leaving the situation. right? And it's a matter of acknowledging, hey, you were in the situation as well. You were a part of it. In every scenario, forgiveness is a little different, but in this scenario, it's you were also a victim, and acknowledging that before you can let that go and say, okay, I forgive myself for what may have happened. But you also have to forgive yourself, as you said, for the role that you played within whatever relationship and what happened in that. Relationships don't just go one way without the other one knowing. Even though you can say, I didn't know what was going on, I don't know what's happening, there's a level of, yeah, we don't connect anymore. There's an unhappiness there. There's things that just are off.
And why? Yeah.
And are you just blindly putting it aside or not? Are you just growing apart? And if you're just growing apart, then wonderful. There should be no forgiveness required. You have open discussions. Hey, we're growing apart. This isn't working. Right? Not working for me. It can't be working for you if it's not working for me, because my whole heart's not involved. And if my whole heart's not involved, you're not getting it. You have to know that. You have to feel that. So let's talk, right? That is the biggest thing to prevent, at least getting to that point, is talk, right?
Yeah.
Getting things out there.
And that's where things in relationships typically go wrong, is the communication starts to go away. One person doesn't want to communicate, and then things happen from that point forward.
Right.
And we're talking about, relationships, but it could also be a situation where a friendship and somebody took money from you, or they didn't give it back. It's another another reason for forgiveness.
Right. And then it's like, you can blame yourself for loaning someone that money and say, well, I did that and I should not have done that. No, you trusted them. They violated your trust. You don't need to forgive yourself for that one.
Agreed.
It's one of those ones where you need to sit back and say, okay, what did I learn from it? And how do I address that going forward if that same person needs help financially again, or someone else approaches me and needs financial help?
Sure.
How will I handle it differently so that I don't end up in the same situation that I'm in, yet can show that other person I care about them? And I do care, and I do want to help in some way, shape, or form.
Was in that situation a year ago. Don't need to get into the details. Somebody that very, very close to, have been since we were kids. And when things were revealed, there was a moment there where I was like, I don't know how this is going to go. But in the end, they stepped up. They got a loan. They repaid.
Nice.
And our relationship is as good as it was when we were in our 20s. It's actually better. It's better. Yeah.
And that's amazing, right? Because you both grew from it. You both learned from it. This other individual clearly learned and grew as well, and said, I want to do right by my friend, and here's what I need to make things good.
Yeah.
From that standpoint.
And now, and there was a, feeling of, how can I ever trust this person again? I don't know if that's ever going to happen. Now, I would say our level of trust is way up there, maybe even more at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you've gone through a difficult situation together, and you came out on the other side. Okay, they got the help they needed. You got the reimbursement eventually that you needed, right? And it all worked.
Yeah.
It all worked. You went through something difficult together, and you both grew from it. That's how it's supposed to work, right? That's how life's supposed to work.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I did trust, and I was told I can trust in many different layers and levels. I wasn't mad at myself for trusting, because there was no sign whatsoever that was a bad idea. So I didn't have to forgive myself. Maybe that's what made it easier. So it wasn't a forgive that person, forgive myself. What do you do? Now we're on trust. What do you do in a situation, let's say a relationship, and somebody was unfaithful? They breached that trust. You have to forgive them. Then you have to get that trust back. I know that probably room for another podcast there.
That's a whole podcast probably from that standpoint. But do you want that back, right? If that happened, there is something else broke within the relationship that needs to be looked at.
Yeah.
Have you grown completely differently? Has one person worked hard on themselves, right? They've worked to elevate, become a better person. They've worked hard to get that vibration up there higher, and the other one hasn't done anything. They've stayed level and stagnant the whole time. This person's going to be frustrated that this person didn't evolve. In this, it doesn't mean you have to go down the same path, but at least evolve. And eventually you can come back together. But if you don't evolve, you can get into these scenarios where that energy is different. I think those are harder to forget. The forgiveness and trust factor, that's harder.
Understood.
Of an aspect to breach.
But there's another piece of it there too, in that if somebody hasn't done the work, and they could have a higher vibration anyway than the other person, but if they've got things from their past that they haven't even identified, that could be the reason why they strayed as well.
Could be. But Are they willing to look, and are they willing to work on themselves? And that's a way of, okay, how do we forgive? Is that person stepping forward and go, okay, I acknowledge what I did was not okay. Yeah. And how do I make this right? I need to figure myself out. I need to figure out what's going on and why I did it. And are you willing to stand by me and wait with me while I do that? But that other person has to make that effort. If they're not making any effort, I say, why put it all in? You can forgive them, but why put that in? And why try to build trust if that other person isn't also going to come along with the ride? It's two people. It takes two. It can't be a one person doing all the work. It really has to be both. I
love what you do and how you do it, in that the stuff we're talking about, other therapists, counselors can talk about, but you take it layers deeper by recognizing the energy and the vibration. Many don't. And for me, that's a game changer. It's on your radar. How does somebody find you, Vicki? You can find me at Full Moon Behavioral. So I'm email fullmoonbehavioral5@yahoo.com. But on the website, Full Moon Behavioral, reach out. You'll see me there. And you can schedule time with me. And I'm happy to sit down and go through whatever those challenges are and help walk through and help you put the plan together of how do you address it. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I'll help you get that plan of what is it you want to do and what do you want to get out of this. Your forgiveness GPS. That's what you are. Yeah. The path to happiness. Thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. We'll be right back. All right. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Of course my kid's in the right car seat. Well, I think he is.
Yeah, my kid's in a booster seat. He was ready to move up. He is ready, right?
Her car seat looks like the right size.
There are probably rules on when to move up to a booster seat, aren't there?
Rear facing, forward facing. I think I have it right.
Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Are your children in the right car seat for their age and size? Don't think you know. Know you know. Go to safercar.gov/the right seat.
I know my child's in the right car seat, or else I wouldn't get in the driver's seat.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.